Hey there everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, this episode is going to be the last part of my 80s movie marathon. Now, how should I start this episode? Well, just recently, I thought to myself on what some of my favorite blogs were, and so far, films like The Christmas Toy, along with The Secret Life of Pets, and just recently Wreck-It Ralph, are among my favorites. Plus, these three films have one thing in common. All three of them ask the question, what do animals and objects do when humans aren't looking? To this day, I still think that's an interesting concept, and while we are getting a new addition to said concept next year, there was one animated film that was released in the late 80s that is said to be the first animated movie with living objects. And it is said by many to be a childhood classic, and it is the subject of my blog today. So, released on July 10th, 1987, the movie is The Brave Little Toaster. In this animated movie, 5 sentient household appliances, Toaster, Blanky, Radio, Lampy, and Kirby, living in an abandoned cabin, have grown lonely. Longing to reunite with their master, a young man named Rob, the appliances set off on a harrowing trek through the wilderness, surviving at best as they can, despite limited sources of electricity. Worse yet, when they arrive in the big city, they discover that they may no longer be useful because of the new modern appliances. So, what are my thoughts on this movie? Well, this is a good movie, though it is not one of my childhood favorites. But before I get ahead of myself, let's move on to Mustang notes. The movie is based on the 1986 novel The Brave Little Toaster, a bedtime story for small appliances by Thomas M. Dish. The film was directed by Jerry Reese, who worked on films like Tron, The Fox and the Hound, and The Small One. The film was produced by Hyperion Animation, along with Kushner Lock Company. Many CalArts graduates, including the original members of Pixar Animation Studios, were involved in this movie. The film rights to The Brave Little Toaster were purchased by the Walt Disney Studios in 1982, 2 years after its appearance in the sub-publication Science Fiction and Fantasy magazine. After animators John Lasseter and Glenn Keane had finished a short of 2D/3D test film based on the book Where the Wild Things Are, Lasseter and producer Thomas L. White, hope I'm pronouncing that right, decided they wanted to produce a whole feature with this manner. This became the first CGI film Lasseter ever pitched. But in their enthusiasm, they ran into a few issues pitching the idea to 2 high-level Disney executives, animation administrator Ed Hansen and Disney president Ron W. Miller. During Lasseter and Wilt's pitch, the film was rejected due to the costs of having traditional animated characters inside a then expensive computer-generated background. A few minutes after the meeting, Lasseter received a phone call from Henson and sadly was instructed to come down to his office, where Lasseter was informed that he was dismissed. The film was later financed as an independent production by Disney with the aid of electronics company TDK Corporation and video distributor CBS Fox Home Video. While the movie did receive a limited theatrical release, The Brave Little Toaster was popular on home video, and it was followed by 2 sequels, The Brave Little Toaster to the Rescue and The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. Now, before I move on to my other thoughts on the movie, I need to say a few words. Now, as a young foal, I managed to watch this movie a lot, even though I never owned it up until a few years recently. The other places I managed to watch this movie when I was young was either at my grandmother's house, daycare, school, and on the Disney Channel. Plus, some of the guys whom I follow on the internet, like the Cartoon Hero, the Cartoon Critic, and Huey Toonmore, did their reviews on this movie, and, in my opinion, their thoughts were very interesting. As for the animation, well, for the time, the animation is pretty good. From the cabin, the woods, the city, and even though the appliances kind of look a little cartoony sometimes, they are pretty well animated too. Also, while this movie is pretty family friendly, there are some dark and suspenseful moments in this. I mean, no surprise since this movie was from the 80s. But anyway, those suspenseful moments are when Toaster and the gang try to cross a waterfall, when they get sucked into a mud pit, and when the gang get chased by a magnet at Ernie's disposal. But the most intense and scariest part in this movie is this scene right here. Yes. Ever since I first watched this movie, when I was 4 years old, this scene scarred and traumatized me to this very day. But the question is, does this scene make any sense to the story? Well, believe it or not, it actually does. Because this scene does manage to show 3 of Toaster's major fears: losing the master, forks, and water. Not only can 2 of these things damage Toaster, but without the master around, who'd be able to fix him when he's damaged or thrown in the water? As for that clown dressed like a fireman, well, a lot of folks, including some of my closest friends, have fear of clowns, and filmmakers like to use that, whether it would make sense or not. But hey, could have been worse. It could have been the killer clowns from outer space, or heck, even Pennywise from It. Also, fun fact, this nightmare was this close to being cut from the movie due to how dark it was for children. On the other hand, there is a scene in the movie where Toaster and the gang encounter some talking woodland creatures. Though it is pretty funny and lighthearted, some folks have pointed out that it feels kind of pointless. However, there was a scene that I found very memorable, which is when Toaster asks a lamppost with traffic lights directions to Rob's apartment. Another fun fact I need to mention is the number on Rob's apartment door, A113. You see, A113 is an Easter egg in the media created by alumni of California Institute of the Arts, referring to a classroom used by graphic design and character animation students, including John Lasseter, Tim Burton, and Brad Bird. And now, let's move on to the movie's songs. Now, the first song in the movie, which is played by radio, is Tutti Frutti by the legendary Little Richard. To me, this song is a classic 50s rock song, and I like that this song is played while Toaster and the gang are doing their chores around the cabin. Also, I'm surprised that a long time ago, Disney made a parody version of this song for the extinct Food Rock show at Epcot. Next is City of Light, sung by Toaster and the gang as they start their journey to find the Master. I really love this song. It feels like another song you'd listen to while on a road trip or vacation. Plus, it feels very peaceful. However, there is one part of the song that feels a bit mature. And that part is when Kirby goes behind a tree to take a dump. The next song in the movie is It's a Bee Movie, sung by a ceiling lamp and other junk shop appliances at Elmo St. Peter's Part Shop. In my opinion, this song is, well, eccentric, but it is awesome at the same time. It feels like a mix of old school horror, the Monster Mash, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera, and 1970s disco. Plus, it's the kind of song you want to listen to when Halloween rolls by, and boy, am I deeply excited when the time comes in the next 2 months. Next is The Cutting Edge, sung by Plugsy and the other modern appliances in Rob's apartment. Now, this song is pretty catchy, but it's not as timeless as It's a Bee Movie, since these appliances are kind of dated to today's technology. On the other hand, it is cool that this song acts like a commercial, and its rhythm feels like You Spin Me Round Like a Record by Dead or Alive. Speaking of which, since my pal Daniel Guzman likes to use You Spin Me Round in several of his YouTube poops, I wonder if Daniel would like to make a YouTube poop on this movie. The last song I need to talk about is Worthless, sung by a bunch of old junkyard cars at Ernie's disposal. Each car sings about their life story before they get killed by the Crusher. Because of this song is frequently considered as one of the darkest songs in Disney films, alongside Hellfire from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, in my opinion, this song is equally as depressing and catchy as Skid Row from Little Shop of Horrors and Sia's cover of California Dreamin' from San Andreas. Despite its sad and depressing lyrics, this song is somewhat fast-paced, giving it a feeling of anticipation for 8 of the junkyard cars as they face their deaths. It also sets the scene for Toaster and his gang's final tribulation. Also, like the nightmare scene that I talked about earlier, originally, this song was going to be cut out of the movie because, according to the producer, one of the junkyard cars was shown committing suicide by driving towards the Crusher on purpose. However, for unknown reasons, the song remained in the movie. Anyway, now that we're done with Mustang notes, let's move on to the characters and the voice actors who brought them to life. The leader of the main gang, Toaster, is voiced by Deanna Oliver, best known for voicing Swift-Heart in the Care Bears series. And of course, she co-wrote Casper and My Favorite Martian. Now, director Jerry Reese called Toaster the warm one who is right enough to put up with everyone else. And the other characters, seeing themselves reflected in his service, feel an immediate kinship. In my opinion, Toaster is a great leader, and I like that he never loses faith. However, sometimes, even though he tries to set his friends straight, he doesn't always get along with them, especially with Blinky. But after Toaster's encounter with a lonely flower, he realized that Blanky wasn't being treated right. Speaking of which, let's move on to Blanky. An electric blanket with an innocent demeanor, voiced by then 8-year-old actor Timothy E. Day. In my opinion, Blanky is a sweet character, and I'm glad that he considers Toaster as his only friend, even though in the beginning, as mentioned earlier, Toaster would get annoyed with him and push him aside at times. Also, I thought it was very frightening when Blanky was blown away into a tree during a storm, and later, well, got sucked into quicksand with the rest of the gang. Next we have Lampy, a gooseneck lamp voiced by Tim Stack, who was in Scary Movie 3 and My Name is Earl. In my opinion, Lampy is a bit of a punk at times, though I liked the part where he recalls the time when Rob changed his bulb and kept him in use. Plus, Lampy has moments of incredible selflessness, like when he used himself as a lightning rod during a thunderstorm in order to recharge the group's car battery, which consequently blew out his bulb. Next up we have Radio, voiced by John Lovitz. Best known for being in An American Tail, Bible Goes West, The Critic, and of course, the first 2 Hotel Transylvania movies. In my opinion, Radio is my favorite out of the appliances, due to the fact that his personality parodies loud and pretentious announcers. Plus, he uses his red pointer in order to navigate him and his friends to the city. Next we come to Kirby, voiced by the late Thurl Ravenscroft. Best known as Tony the Tiger from the Frosted Flakes commercials, and he got to sing in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And at Disneyland, he got to do some voice work as Fritz and Tongoloa from the Enchanted Tiki Room, one of the head busts from the Haunted Mansion, Buff, the buffalo head from the Country Bears, and was the former tour guide voice on the Disneyland Railroad. To me, judging by his name and what he can do, I think that Kirby may be the inspiration for a little Nintendo character. Anyway, while Kirby dons a cynical attitude towards his friends, he actually does care for them, and risks his life to save them more than once. This is Air Conditioner, voiced by the late Phil Hartman. Best known from Kiki's Delivery Service and Buster and Chauncey's Silent Night. In my opinion, AC is a sarcastic character with a Jack Nicholson impersonation. He loses his temper while arguing with Toaster and the gang and explodes. But later, he is repaired by Rob nearing the end of the movie. Next we have the Ceiling Lamp, also voiced by Phil Hartman, who seems to be doing a Peter Lorre impersonation. To me, this character is pretty strange, though I thought it was pretty nice of him that he gave Lampy one of his own light bulbs to replace the one that was broken during the storm. Next we have Elmo St. Peters, the owner of a spare appliance parts shop, voiced by the late Joe Ranft, who voiced Heimlich in Pixar's A Bug's Life Wheezy and Lenny from the Toy Story movies, and of course, Jacques from Finding Nemo. Now, this character makes a living repairing old appliances or disassembling them in order to sell for a profit. Therefore, this guy is feared by all who are sent to his shop. To me, this guy is a tad weird, though I thought it was nice that he saved Toaster and the gang from the mud pit, but the most satisfying scene is when Toaster and the gang scare the dickens out of Elmo in order to save Radio, even though Toy Story did a better scare. Next we have Plugsy, a pear-shaped table lamp with a LED light bulb, voiced by Major Asshole himself, Jim Jackman. This character is one of the modern machines that reside in Rob's apartment. While they were benevolent in the novel, in the movie, they are formally jealous and antagonistic towards the gang. In my opinion, due to the fact that he and the other modern appliances overheard Rob say that he was going to take Toaster and the others to his dorm, Plugsy and the others are a bunch of boastful jerks. Next up we have TV, voiced by the late Jonathan Benair. This character is an old monochrome console television who has moved to Rob's apartment. I really do like this character, due to how friendly he is with Toaster and the gang. And I really like the scene where he does random commercials to try to convince Rob to rescue the appliances from Ernie's disposal. Next we have Rob, the original human owner of the main appliances, voiced by Wayne Katz. In several flashbacks, Rob had a nice relationship with Toaster and the rest of the appliances. Later in the movie, it is revealed that Rob has recently graduated and is preparing to go to college. In my opinion, Rob seems like a brilliant and smart young man, and I think it's cool that he was planning to use our main heroes at his college dorm. Finally, we have Rob's girlfriend, Chris, voiced by Colette Savage. To me, Chris is very pretty, and I think she can be very sarcastic and snarky at times. But on the other hand, I think she and Rob make a nice couple. And now, let's move on to my final words. Overall, The Brave Little Toaster is a nice movie to come from the 80s. While this movie is not one of my childhood favorites, I can understand why children and families love this movie, despite the fact that there are several dark moments, and a few characters can be mean-spirited. The animation for the time is decent, the songs are nice to listen to, though Cutting Edge is a tad dated. Most of the characters are relatable and memorable. The story is very lighthearted, and I like how this movie describes mankind's relationship with technology. So, if you guys haven't watched this movie yet, you should at least check it out. As for my rating, I'll give this movie a 68% out of 100. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Be sure to join me for, hopefully, one more blog before I go on vacation to Nashville, Tennessee. Mustang Power.